What is up, players? Chairman here, and welcome to my top 10 games of 2017. I really enjoyed doing this last year, and it seemed like people relatively seemed to like it, so I figured I'd do it again this year. Just like last year, this is listed by my own personal enjoyment of these games, so throughout 2017, which ones kept a big smile on my face and sucked up a ton of my free time? The nice thing about the 2017's list compared to the 2016 one is that I feel like I played enough games that were released in 2017 to make up their own category. So this video will focus solely on games which came out in 2017, which I think should make it slightly better. I don't know. I'm also honestly considering making a second video which is a top 10 games that I played in 2017 that didn't actually come out in 2017, but that might be way too ambitious to finish. However, I do really like recommending games that are cheap as shit on Steam, and I know a lot of people like that stuff as well, so I'm thinking about it. Now, the only issue with doing a list of games which exclusively came out in 2017 is that there is a lot of good shit that came out this year, and I am just one person, so unfortunately there is a lot of stuff that would have probably made it on this year's top 10, but I just haven't gotten around to playing it. So I'll run through some games in the video, which are probably worth checking out. But I just haven't gotten around to playing them yet, and I'll probably play most of these eventually. If you think there's a game I miss talking about in this video or that I should really play next, please leave your thoughts in the comments or post your own top 10 of 2017. I really enjoy reading that stuff. And just like last year, each game obviously on this top 10 has the chairman seal of approval, as cheesy as it fucking sounds. If you do have any interest in these games I'm talking about, please consider picking them up, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't waste my time talking about it. Alright, I've rambled on long enough. Let's get into an honorable mention, and then we'll jump right into the top 10. Alright, and the honorable mention that I have for this year is PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, or PUBG. You probably already know about PUBG, but in case you don't, 100 players are airdropped into a map where you run around, find weapons, equipment, and vehicles. As time progresses, the playable area of the map gets smaller and smaller. It's quite a simple battle royale style concept, but there's quite a lot of tactics and things you can employ to outwit your enemies, or you could just run at them with a shotgun, I suppose, and probably die horribly. Another big positive for the game is that it's really quick to drop into a new match when you inevitably die, and I think that sort of adds to its addictive quality. I put around 60, 70, 80 hours in this game this year, so why is it only on my honorable mentions? Well, it was early access for quite a while when I played it, until literally a couple days ago, where I guess now it has some sort of 1.0 release. And that's fine, but it's still kind of terribly optimized for PC, and always has been. I have to turn a bunch of settings down to get the frame rate to just run consistently, which is really, really annoying. And I think that hampers it from really escalating this up into my actual top 10. And lots of bugs and stuff still kind of plague this game, but hey, some of the rounds can get super intense. Gotta listen for other people, gunshots close by, make me really scared because I don't want to die. It gets really tense. If you got a couple of friends to play the squad mode with and you don't already own this game, it might be a good one to pick up, because there's not a whole lot of better feelings you get than getting some of that sweet, sweet chicken dinner. And for number 10, I have Dead Cells. Normally I don't play a whole lot of early access games because I tend to spend a lot of my time on games which are actually finished, but I'll be damned if I don't enjoy the hell out of this game. It's a hacky, slashy, roly, roguelike Metroidvania where you jump around, hit things, and upgrade your character with cells and mutations. The interesting thing is that cell upgrades are permanent improvements to your character, so if you play the game enough, it's more likely that you can progress further, which I actually really like as far as roguelike stuff goes. As you move forward, you can find scrolls which upgrade your current run, which improve your damage or total health. The combat is really fun, and the fact that you have to pick up a various array of weapons like swords, knives, bombs, and spells gives the game a really nice variety, and the dodge roll is really cool. Gives a lot of speed and finesse to the combat. There's also special rooms you can go into, but only if you're fast enough, which I am terrible at finding because I spend a bit too much time exploring every little nook and cranny. If you're looking for a roguelike or like slicing people up in a Metroidvania style, this may be a good purchase for you. I'm really enjoying it so far, and I think you will too. Just watch out for those fucking spikes. For number 9, I have Nioh, which is a Souls-like game released for PS4, and I believe there's a recent PC release, but I've only been playing the PS4 version. In this game, you play as William, an Irishman with the ability to see magical spirits called yokai. He journeys to Japan to embrace his inner weave and finally become a true samurai. Oh, and also recover a yokai spirit thing which was stolen from him. But this is a Dark Souls-like game. The plot sort of takes a backstory to gameplay. This game, like Dark Souls, has a very difficult and unforgiving combat system. In a lot of ways, it's even more complicated than Dark Souls combat. You have a bunch of different stances you can use. There's like key pulses you can activate. Maybe I'm just bad at it, I don't know. It also likes to shower you with new weapons and items rather than having a sort of upgrade system with Titanite or whatever like there is in a Souls game, which kind of overwhelms me. One other difference from the Souls games is that it's got a level mission-based system rather than one cohesive world. In a weird way, I actually kind of like this system, because there are sort of side missions that help level your character up, and it means you don't have to do a whole lot of necessary Souls/Amrita grinding. But I've talked before about how much I like combat systems like this. They are challenging, but man, when you overcome a really tough challenge, it's very satisfying. Also, some of the bosses in this game are really cool, and in my opinion, really well designed. If you're looking for some more Dark Souls-like games, this one might be worth picking up. And moving on to number 8, I have Nier Automata, a third-person hack-and-slash fighter where you play as an android named 2B, as well as a hacker named 9S. This game is set in a future where robot aliens have taken over the Earth, and the humans built a final base on the moon where they commission androids to help retake the Earth. As the game goes on, you sort of discover that the robot aliens, which are, the ones that are running the Earth now, are sort of trying to figure out how to become more human, and if I go any further, I'll probably delve into spoiler territory. One of the cool things about this game is that you get to play as a sort of Gundam Wing thing with some shooting sections. There's also a hacking section, which turns into like a bullet hell shooter thing, which gets kind of insane. Also, the music is kick-ass, some of the most beautiful stuff I've heard in any game. Unfortunately, in order to get this game to run at a consistent frame rate, I had to download a mod, which is kind of annoying and kind of frankly ridiculous for a game that comes out in 2017. I shouldn't really have to do that. And maybe it was just me, but I didn't really get the plot of this game. Most of the time I was just going, what the fuck is going on, rather than being like emotionally connected to it. It's probably because I'm stupid and spend a lot of time looking at 2B's ass instead of paying attention. Seriously though, why do they give androids butts and dress them in heels and French-made looking outfits? Doesn't really seem to be very functional for a fighting android thing. Anyways, I know a lot of people on the internet really like this game, just reading through comments and posts and stuff. I feel like I missed something in this game to really push me from liking this game to loving this game. So maybe that's my own fault, but I feel like if I would have liked the plot a bit better, wouldn't have played it on PC, and there was much less of that damn hacking minigame, and the second playthrough of the game wasn't such a slog, I think it would have elevated the rank here quite a bit. But man, the combat is really cool and has quite a lot of depth, and the game is really quite pretty to look at. I play video games for the compelling plots. Anyways, let's jump to number 7. For number 7, I have Xenoblade Chronicles 2, a JRPG which just recently came out for the Switch. Now, I gotta be honest, I haven't finished this game yet. I feel kind of bad for putting this on my list when I haven't finished it. It's not very professional of me, whatever. But it's a long game. I put about 60 hours in it right now, which is maybe like halfway through. I feel like I have enough of a background on it to put enough of my thoughts into it, though. And it's going to be a little bit difficult to avoid constantly comparing this game to the first Xenoblade Chronicles, which in my opinion is far superior. So I'll just try to get it out of the way right now. I don't think the story is quite as good as the first one, and the dub, especially compared to the first one, isn't that great. Also, Xenoblade 2 feels a lot more, I'm gonna air quotes here, anime than the first one did. That's fine, but I worried that might scare a few people away. If you can get your hands on the first game in this series, the one with Shulk, play that one, because it's much better and not as Japanese. Now, that may sound like I'm quite down on this game, but that's certainly not the case. In a world where the remaining humans live on massive creatures called Titans, the plot centers around a salvager named Rex, who finds a magical living weapon named Pyra, and together they try to find a way to do a thing. I'm avoiding spoilers here. Along the way, they do the typical JRPG thing, like meeting party members, completing side quests, upgrading your equipment, blah 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 blah. The plot is really intriguing, as is the world you run around in. Some of the scenery in this game is absolutely beautiful, and that's really cool. I would argue that some of the scenery in this game is actually better than Dark Souls at points, and I do not make that statement lightly. Also, I genuinely like a lot of the characters in this game, and both the plot and the interest in seeing what the next area looked like kept my interest in this game for at least 60 hours so far, and I feel like any game that's able to keep my interest for 60 hours has got to be doing something right. Also, the combat system is pretty phenomenal. It starts off seeming very simple, but as the game progresses, it gets incredibly deep. You can combine weapon elements for massive damage, throw your enemies up in the air and smash them, stab them in the back. It's really cool. If you have any interests in JRPGs and have a Switch, it's one of the better ones that I've played lately. I would recommend it. I guess you could say I'm really feeling it about this game. If you want to close the video right now, you can do that. Alright, moving on to number 6, I have SteamWorld Dig 2. This is one of those happy surprises for the year. Somebody just recommended it to me and I was absolutely not disappointed. You know me, I like my Metroidvania style games, and throw in some mining and some surprisingly likable characters and you have a nice enjoyable little game here. I played the Switch version, but there's also a Steam release. You play as a robot named Dorothy, or Dot for short, alongside a sentient AI named Fen, while you try to rescue a robot named Rusty. Throughout your journey, you dig for minerals, explore caves, fight enemies, and find power-ups. One of the cool things is you can upgrade these power-ups with cogs you find through exploration, which is a really nice way to reward exploration in a Metroidvania game. This is one of those games that you should for sure buy on Steam when it gets super cheap, or you should just buy it right now because it's surprising just how much I enjoyed this little game. However, it is a rather short experience, so just keep that in mind. Moving along to number 5, I have Yakuza 0 for the PlayStation 4. Now, I've never played a Yakuza game before this one, so I don't really have a whole lot to reference comparing it to the previous entries of the series. Anyways, this game takes place within a couple large Japanese cities. I think one of them's Tokyo, I forget the name of the other one, but within a couple square blocks of said cities. You switch between two different protagonists, Kiryu and Majima, as they struggle for various reasons with their Yakuza allies. Kiryu is framed for murder and removed from the gang, while Majima is being punished for a traitorous thing that he did for the Yakuza. Plot is quite interesting. It has some really impressive and captivating cutscenes, and from what I can tell, even though, the game's all in Japanese, the voice acting is phenomenal. I would say that while the plot does center around some gang-related drama, where you punch people with various different fighting stances and various different weapons, there are, however, a lot of extra side missions and activities to fuck around with. This is, in my opinion, where most of the gameplay lies, where most of the draw that this game provides lies. Not that the plot's bad or anything, it's just not what kept me playing the game. Anyways, lots of the side quests and side activities are just a hilarious spectacle. So many things in this game are ridiculously and completely over the top. Like there's this, let me try to give you an example. There's this mini game where you race miniature circuit race cars against little kids, and Kiryu, the main character, takes everything so seriously, and it's ridiculously overdramatic. It's hilarious. And lots of this game is filled with little, over-the-top things like that that just make me smile. And also, I think the Pocket Circuit minigame might be one of my favorite side activities you do in any game ever. There's also bowling, getting really drunk at a bar and playing darts, a couple arcade games, mahjong, and a game where you meet lovely ladies over the phone, and a ton of different other stuff. The game is just packed with mini games and shit that you can just do for fun. Additionally, it has side quests or sub-stories, which all have their own little charm and humor to them. This is one of those games that I just play for an hour before I go to bed. It's nice to unwind by drinking heavily, punching people in the streets, going to a batting cage, and then running a real estate empire. Oh yeah, that's another thing you can do in this game. You can invest or buy certain properties that make money being used to upgrade your abilities in different fighting styles. You also eventually get to run a cabaret club. That's got its own mini game as well. There's just a ton of different shit to do in this game. It's insane. Oh yeah, and there is a weapon in this game, which is a giant marlin that shoots cannonballs. If that's not enough of a reason to buy this game, I don't know what is. It is a PS4 exclusive though, but if you have a PS4, pick this motherfucker up. Number 4, I have Divinity Original Sin 2. This is a fantastic isometric fantasy RPG set in a land of somewhere, I forget the name of it, where anyone with the ability to use a magical element called Source is shipped off to an island and gets an anti-Source collar slapped on them. And then you do things, and that would get into spoilers. This is one of the best RPGs I have ever played. A compelling plot, good characters and side quests, lots of choices, and you have a ton of freedom with how you approach problems. For example, a legit tactic you can use in this game is to max out your teleportation spell and literally put a bunch of heavy items into a chest and then carry that chest around with you, and then anytime an enemy looks at you funny, you just drop the chest on top of them, which deals massive damage. If that isn't convincing enough for you, it also has a multiplayer feature where you can have up to 4-player co-op, which is pretty dope. It's like having your own party of people playing Dungeons & Dragons, each with their own custom character. Or at least it's probably the closest thing I've ever played, short of actually playing Dungeons & Dragons online via like Roll20 or something. Or you play it single player and meet a bunch of cool additional party members or NPCs that they have in the game. Also, the customization systems for your character are really unique. There are a bunch of different elemental type paths you can go down. Each tree has their own unique set of spells, which gives your character some really interesting variety. For example, you could have your fighter put a couple points into necromancy, and give him or her some extra healing while there are bloody areas around them. Or you could give your rogue a fire dagger ability and light the remaining oil left over from a slime blob that your mage summoned, which would also deal massive damage. Most spells and abilities leave elemental effects on the ground, so if you combine water and air, for example, you can create ice on the ground that your enemies or your allies can trip on. Or somebody could cast rain while another person uses a lightning spell to stun allies. And only allies. You notice how I said allies there, not enemies. Fuck you, Reed. Stop stunning me with your goddamn lightning spell. He literally only ever... Okay, I need to calm down. Yeah, friendly fires in this game. You can totally fuck up your friends if you want. Magicka style. And that's just me talking about element combining. There's so much more stuff in this game. I just wanted to give you some examples. If I explained every system, I'd be here all day. But that's the cool thing about this game. There's just so much good shit all packed into one complete, satisfying experience. It's a must purchase from 2017 if you consider yourself a fan of RPGs whatsoever. Number 3, I have Super Mario Odyssey, a small indie title none of you have probably heard of. Good joke. Well, I know it's a big surprise this made it in the top 10. I know I'm probably not the first person you're hearing this revolutionary news from, but Super Mario Odyssey is good. It's great, even. I'm gonna guess you probably already know the complex and elaborate plot of this game. Bowser stole Mario's grill, and you need to go on a journey with a magical hat creature named Cappy. Cappy has 2 things that he adds to Mario's arsenal. First, Mario can use the hat as a springboard to help assist with jumps, which adds to the already insane amount of mobility options Mario has. The second is that you can throw your hat at enemies and control them for a while. Each enemy has its own special ability, like able to swim in lava, able to stack on each other, able to jump ridiculously high, etc. With these tools, Mario and Cappy go on an odyssey.
Wow, look at that. Look at that clever writing right there.
Through various different worlds to find power moons. Each one helps give your ship more power to help you get to the next level. Each level has its own theme and characters to it. I don't want to spoil too many of the levels because I think it's better if you sort of discover them, but I can say each level is incredibly different from the previous one and is loaded with about 1 million different moons to find. The music's great for the most part, and this game just manages to capture that sort of magic that Nintendo has somehow been able to put into so many of their games previously. If you have a Switch, buy this game. It might also be good enough on its own to convince you to buy a Switch if you don't have one already. On to number 2. It is The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. Let's be real, you probably knew this was coming. Somewhere on this list. I like Zelda a lot, if you know me at all. You know I like Zelda. This is one of my favorite franchises. Not my favorite franchise, but it's one of my favorites. So, yeah. What's there to be said about Breath of the Wild that hasn't already been said by about a million other people? It is legitimately one of the most open-ended experiences I have ever played. It starts off with a pretty small intro tutorial section where it explains weapon degradation, cooking, climbing, and how shrines work. Oh, and you should probably go fight that Ganon guy at some point because he's bad. And then after that tutorial section it goes, well, have fun. And then you're off to explore a beautiful, fascinating, and dangerous world before you. It's pretty, it's organic, there's puzzle solving in consolidated areas called shrines, which I mentioned before. You got tons of weapons, bows, shields, cooking ingredients, armor, and horses to find to help you on your journey. Breath of the Wild feels like a constant adventure. Not a whole lot of other games can provide that genuine of a feeling. Sure, lots of games today claim to be sandboxes or quote, I'm doing air quotes here, play it your way experiences, but lots of times there's limitations or some main story mission you should or have to be doing eventually. And yeah, there is a main story mission in Zelda, but you don't have to do it. You could just run to the final boss or just completely ignore it for 70 hours if you wanted to. You just do what you want to, man. And that's the beauty of it. It respects the player to make their own discoveries and experiences. And I think you should take it upon yourself to get a hold of a Switch and this game and discover everything on your own, rather than having me tell you about it and spoil everything for you. I don't think you'll regret it. We finally made it here, guys. And my number 1 game of the year of 2017 is Persona 5 for the PS4. A JRPG / high school simulation game. Holy shit, I love this game so much. This was the big surprise of the year for me. I accidentally started watching somebody stream this game a day or two after it came out, and I had never really heard of the Persona series before this, but I was like, wow, that's a really cool looking aesthetic. I then bought this on the way home from work, and 140 hours and about a month of my life later, I finished this bad boy, and I loved every second of it. But before I get too ahead of myself, I should explain how this game works to those who are unfamiliar and probably confused right now. You play as a high school kid in Tokyo who recently moved to a new school for plot reasons, where you live in an attic of your new caretaker's coffee shop, for, again, plot reasons. After you start going to school, you discover that there is an alternate dimension thing called the metaverse. Where, now I'm simplifying things a bit here, but basically in the metaverse, the subconscious or evil desires of humans exist. And by fighting monsters and bosses and stuff within the metaverse, you can change people's thoughts and feelings. It's a bit similar to like the concept of Inception. Oh, and somewhere along discovering this, you also meet a talking cat. Plot reasons. Trying to avoid spoilers here in case that wasn't obvious. So you spend half the game trying to make it through high school, studying, making friends, working at a job, you know, the usual high school kid stuff. Then you spend the other half the game fighting monsters in the metaverse with your friends that you met in high school. This all happens through a day-to-day cycle, similar to like Stardew Valley or something. So on each day you can choose either to spend your time studying or hanging out with friends, or try to progress further in the metaverse. The cool thing is that the real-life stuff you do helps you in various ways in the metaverse. I have no clue if any of this explaining is even helping. Oh yeah, and also in the metaverse, those monsters you fight, you can also convince them to join in your array of personas. Each monster has their own attacks and types and stuff, so yeah, there's a bit of Pokemon in this game too. So you got a high school life simulator with some dungeon crawly bits and some Pokemon thrown in there. This is all backed up by one of the prettiest aesthetics I've ever seen in a video game. It's just oozing out of every little corner with style. Even the menus in this game are pretty to look at. Lots of game studios these days try to push more realistic graphics, more polygons, more pixels, more bloom, more triple blended realistic hair physics, and yet this game that is literally designed to run originally on PS3 hardware is one of the prettiest games I've ever played. Great art direction and style beat realistic graphics any day of the week, and this is a prime example of that. Oh, and the music. Oh, the music. So good. Favorite soundtrack of this year. It's incredible. Mario Odyssey had some great tracks, and Nier Automata was honestly a close second. But the music in Persona 5 just matches so well with the aesthetic in this game. I love it. Another thing this game has got going for it is some absolutely fantastic character writing. And you can choose to spend your time hanging out with these characters, which fleshes out their backstory and goals, and even gives them some power in the metaverse at the same time. Okay, what else do I have to talk about? The plot and the combat, I suppose. The plot is phenomenal, and the well-written characters help strengthen it even further. Not going to spoil any more of it. The combat, like a couple other games in this list, seems simple at first, but you discover is quite deep. You have your various array of Persona attacks. You can shoot people with guns, hit them with melee attacks, guard. If you hit the enemy's weaknesses, you can combo and pass a turn to another party member. If you weaken all the enemies, you can finish them with a dope all-out attack. There's a lot there, and even more stuff that I missed, I'm sure. Okay, I feel like I've rambled on long enough. I have no clue if I explained that well or not, but anyways, I love this game to death. I pretty much devoted a month of my free time to just playing this game. This was the biggest surprise of the year for me, and it was probably the game I played the most this year other than League, I suppose. All those reasons make it my favorite game that I played in 2017, and if you have a PS4, you should totally buy it. If you don't have a PS4, you should buy a PS4 and totally buy it. And that is going to conclude the top 10 of this year. I just want to take some time to say thanks for watching. I put a lot of work into this and it took me an embarrassing amount of time to do. And I'm sorry it came out a little late this year. Had some personal stuff I was dealing with, which pushed it back a couple days. But yeah, thanks for taking your time to watch my dumb ramblings. Yeah, make sure to leave your thoughts in the comments, and I hope your 2018 is just splendid. Later, players.